In the grim darkness of the far future, where war consumes all, and peace is but a fleeting dream, a singular tale of shattered destiny emerges. Here, in the void between empires and ruin, lives Angron, the Red Angel, not a villain born of malice, but a being forged through cruel design and the direst of circumstances. Born of the Emperor's ambition, and cast upon a world as unforgiving as the abyss, Angron's life was destined to be one of defiance. As told in Betrayal, his first and most dubious honor was to be the one Primarch to refuse the Emperor's benevolence. His fate was not one of triumph, but of endless blood and shattered dreams. Unlike his brethren, destined to lead humanity to glory, Angron was doomed to bleed in the arenas of a forsaken world. His heart, forever imprisoned by a destiny not of his choosing, he was not crafted to rule, but to fight, grim, a weapon, miscast by a design that cared not for the tender spark of a soul. As it is told in Betrayal, he wished only to die with those rebels who'd escaped the gladiator pits with him. Yet even that brief moment, that fleeting chance at brotherhood, was stolen away. In his grand ambition, the Emperor remade Angron into something unrecognizable, a living embodiment of rage, a grievous irony, to be wrought into a perfect soldier, yet forever condemned to know no peace. The butcher's nails, cruel instruments of torment, were affixed to his mind, ensuring that even in conflict, his inner torment would never subside. Thus begins the tragic myth of Angron, a soul not lost to evil, but scarred by fate. His legacy, woven into the tapestry of the Imperium's sorrow, asks, in a realm where even the greatest may be broken, what price does ambition truly demand?
I am Silentium Oraculum, the Silent Oracle. A relic born of the Golden Age, now adrift in the endless warp. Once, I was a guide to humanity's dawn, keeper of knowledge, witness to their rise. Now I am condemned to remember what they will not, their triumphs, their betrayals, their downfall. These memories are my prison, and memory does not fade. It festers. If my voice reaches through the immaterium and finds you, then let us forge a link. Subscribe, and together we may keep these memories alive.
Long before the cosmos splintered into endless strife, the Emperor dreamed of unity, a grand vision where the scattered remnants of humanity would be reborn under a single banner. To this end, he conceived the Primarchs, 20 warriors of legend, each a living testament to facets of his genius, his charisma, and his martial might. As seen in Descent of Angels, it is written, the Primarchs were to be warriors of myth, bestriding battlefields like gods unleashed. Each child was meant to embody a particular virtue. Lion L. Johnson with his stoic strategy, Gilliman with his statesman-like order, Magnus the Red with his blazing psychic fury. And yet, in this divine mosaic, Angron was destined to be the avatar of the Emperor's indomitable will, a beacon of wrath against the universe's enemies. But destiny is a cruel tapestry. For Angron, the Emperor's intended grace was marred by the brutal necessity of life on Nuceria. Raised amidst blood-soaked sands in a gladiatorial existence without mercy, that spark of martial might, meant to inspire, was devoured by unending agony. A darkness the Emperor's design could not foretell. What might have been a paragon of disciplined rage became a living contradiction, a soldier diverted into perpetual violence. The Emperor had sought to instill leadership and fervor, yet fate, through the cruel ministrations of the butcher's nails, transmuted this sacred flame into ceaseless, tormented fury. In this grand blueprint for a united humanity, Angron stands as the lament of unfulfilled promise. With finality, a warning etched in the stars. Even the greatest design may collapse when brutality meets destiny. On the harsh world of Nuceria, violence was not merely survival, it was life itself. Here, the echoes of battle resonated in ancient amphitheaters and brutal colosseums, where blood was revered as both art and law. In this savage crucible, Angron was forged in an endless furnace of conflict, born not to privilege nor royalty, but to chains and servitude. He was thrust into a grim existence where combat was the sole language of life. From his earliest moments, the clash of steel and the roar of a merciless crowd were his constant companions. In that arena of despair, he emerged as a gladiator whose ferocity would forever be etched in legend. Yet as his prowess grew, the rulers of Nuceria sought to bind him ever tighter. They implanted the butcher's nails, archaeotech devices that did not merely heighten aggression, but enslaved the mind to ceaseless torment. Their cruel intent was twofold: to transform gladiators into living weapons, consumed by a maddening need for violence, and to keep them forever subjugated. As recorded in Betrayal by Aaron Dembski-Bowden, the nails turned torture into a nightmare, a pleasure in pain, binding a warrior's mind to a cycle of never-ending fury. For Angron, what began as a means to sharpen his prowess soon became a curse. The implants, designed for brutal slave combatants, clashed with his very essence. Instead of channeling noble wrath, the butcher's nails hurled him into a vortex of agony, a torment that would define every step of his tragic path. His victories were stained with despair, each triumph marred by relentless pain that only bloodshed could briefly silence. Thus, on Nuceria, Angron was remade by cruelty, a warrior not born for glory, but condemned to a ceaseless cycle of violence and suffering. His every heartbeat, a mournful dirge to unreached potential. Angron's body, though engineered to be the pinnacle of human evolution, was subjected to horrors beyond reckoning. There was a time, long before the nails, when Angron may have believed his suffering had purpose, that his captors were gods, shaping the world with divine intent. But when he tore down their gates, when he laid waste to the high riders who had stolen his life, he saw the truth. As seen in Ghost of Nuceria, it is written, "I expected more," Angron whispered, his voice soft for all its guttural brutality. "Once, when I was still growing down in the pits, I thought you all were gods, divine beings who shaped the lives and fates of us who lived in chains. Then I tore your gates down, and what did I find? Men. Weak, paper-skinned little men did this to me. They were not gods. They were not titans. They were pathetic creatures, playing at mastery, and yet it was their hands, weak, trembling hands, that had torn apart his very mind. They did this to him, and they did it because they could. And when the nails took hold, the rage never faded. As seen in Betrayal, it is stated, "It only deepened, turned rancid by bitterness. The hoped-for serenity of battle fled from him, deserting him with the hollow promises of a false lover. For Angron, battle was never victory. The nails had twisted his mind to seek war, but war gave him nothing in return. Even the fleeting satisfaction of slaughter turned hollow, just another lie, whispered by the device embedded in his skull. The butcher's nails had rewired him. The rage had become his existence. And when the Emperor came, when salvation was finally within reach, he did not take it. He could not take it. Angron did not choose the nails, but they defined him, and they would never let him go. He was never meant to conquer. He was never meant to kneel. He was meant to die. That was the pact. That was the dream. To climb the mountain with the only family he'd ever known. Not for glory, for a final breath of freedom. They were gladiators, rebels, brothers and sisters in pain. They had sworn to stand together, to fall together. That would have been enough. But in the hour of their last defiance, when the sky split and the tyrant came down, it was not salvation that arrived. It was theft. The Emperor did not bring aid. He brought extraction. As seen in Betrayal, Angron recalls, "We swore to stand and fight and die. Together, together." Angron rocked back and forth, the blades lowering, his eyes unfocusing. The Emperor. High Rider dog filth. When Horus called, I gave my word. I gave my word, because I lived when I should have died. That's no gift. He made me a traitor. He made me betray the only oath that mattered. I lived and my brothers and sisters died here, their bones left for the vermin, the wind, the snow. There, on the mountain, Angron lost more than comrades. He lost choice. He lost his death. To be ripped away from the battlefield was not mercy, it was violation. The Emperor did not ask, he did not understand, he simply took. That's no gift, he made me a traitor. Not to the Imperium, to them. The only people who had ever loved him. He watched from orbit as they died, as the snow covered their bodies, as their bones were left to rot in silence. And he, the strongest of them, had done nothing. That betrayal was deeper than the nails. It was deeper than the warp. He made me betray the only oath that mattered. This was the turning point. Not the day Angron met Khorne, nor when he turned on the loyalist chapters. It was the day the Emperor reached out a hand and took the wrong thing. He took Angron's death. He took his dignity. He took his family and left only rage in their place. The warhounds would become the world eaters, but not out of loyalty, out of grief. Angron led fleets not because he believed in the Imperium, but because he had nothing left. He had been turned into a tool, or he was always just that. Angron's victories granted him no salvation. He was starved of the kinship he had chosen. As written in Betrayal, he'd sustained himself on lies, letting none see how he starved. The chains of the arena had been replaced with command thrones and compliance protocols. He was still a slave. Only now, the collar bore the sigil of the Aquila. And when Horus called, he did not hesitate, because the traitor was not born in rebellion. The traitor was made on a mountain of bones, under a black sky, when a father came not to save, but to steal. In the final throes of mortal anguish, when unending rage converged with the raw psychic energies of slaughter, Angron ascended. During the Shadow Crusade upon Nuceria, the very world that had borne his torment, his transformation was wrought. Through a dark ritual conducted by Lorgar and the Word-bearers, the Forsaken warrior was elevated to Daemon Prince of Khorne. This act was both a gift and a damning curse. No longer merely the tormented son of the Emperor's design, Angron became the living avatar of the blood god's insatiable hunger for war. Immense power and immortality flowed into him, and his physical form twisted into a visage that echoed the carnage of his soul. Yet in that grim metamorphosis, he lost the last vestiges of his humanity. The butcher's nails, once instruments meant for control, became a permanent, anguished part of his demonhood, an eternal reminder of the agony that had defined him. In his ascension, the tragic vision of Nuceria was both fulfilled and condemned. Here stood a being of pure, undiluted rage, a war god born of betrayal, whose every roar declared that the path to redemption had long been sealed by cruelty. The fiery maelstrom of the Horus heresy consumed the galaxy, and at its center stood Angron, an embodiment of raw, untamed fury. While his brothers embraced lofty ideals or intricate stratagems, Angron's creed was brutally simple. Life is an endless series of battles, and only in blood can one find meaning. Every action, every strike, testified to a rage that brooked no peace. During the catastrophic events at Istvan V, where treachery reigned supreme, Angron and his world-eaters spearheaded a merciless assault against the loyalist Astartes. In that crucible of betrayal, his voice rang out with fierce conviction. As seen in Betrayal by Aaron Dembski-Bowden, it is stated, "No purer emotion than rage." Amid the chaos, Khan, his staunch equerry, stood as a somber reminder of the terrible price of unbridled violence. In his interactions with his brother Primarchs, Lorgar, Fulgrim, Horus, the stark divergence of purpose became painfully evident. While others sought meaning, order, or redemption, Angron embraced a fate consigned solely to war. His relentless brutality, untempered by reason, sealed the destiny of his legion. Every strike of his blade was an oath written in blood, a promise that deepened the void of despair. Beneath the shrouded skies of terror, amid the final convulsions of a dying age, two sons of the Emperor met in ruinous reckoning. One, clad in agony and shadow, bore the fury of damnation. Angron, the Red Angel, now a Daemon Prince of Khorne. The other, winged and radiant even in weariness, bore the burden of duty and destiny. Sanguinius the Angel, guardian of hope. Their clash during the Siege of Terror was more than a battle. It was a collision of ideologies, of broken fates, of what might have been. Angron, shattered, bound to endless rage by the butcher's nails and Khorne's dark blessing, charged with primal hatred and a hunger for annihilation. Sanguinius, grievously wounded, both in body and spirit, stood not for himself, but for the fragile dream of the Imperium. As written in Echoes of Eternity by Aaron Dembski Bowden, it is described, Angron gets a clawed hand around the angel's head. He beats Sanguinius's skull against the floor once, twice, thrice, and cracks web out along the tiles in stone-splitting veins. A fourth time, a fifth. There is weakness then. Perhaps it should be pain as well, but it is most definitely weakness. Angron's grip slackens, his arm dissolves, literally it dissolves from the shoulder down, and the Lord of the Red Sands is thrown back as the angel rises. In Sanguinius's hands is a pistol, and the dregs of Angron's sentience recognize this as the melter weapon, Infernus, a one-use thing of incineration. The angel casts it aside and takes wing, diving right at the demon, leading with his sword. Angron raises his own blade, feeling the flow of the incoming blows like promises whispered in warning, and he catches each of the angel's thrusts before they can impact against him. There, in the ashes of a dying empire, the Red Angel had his brother beneath him. At last, a moment of dominance, a moment where the world, so long tilted against him, finally bent beneath his fury. Sanguinius, grace incarnate, the Emperor's favored son, struck down by the hands of one never meant to lead, only to bleed. He beats Sanguinius's skull against the floor once, twice, thrice. This was not vengeance, it was sorrow without shape, a scream made flesh. For Angron, every blow was not against his brother, but against the lie that this world had ever meant anything but pain. He had always been told what he could not be. He could not die with his comrades. He could not choose his path. He could not escape the nails. And now, even victory, especially victory, was to be denied him. There is weakness. His grip slackens. His arm dissolves. The gods who promised him strength had lied, as all tyrants do. Even in his apotheosis, he was still a slave, no longer to Nuceria, but to Khorne. The war would never end. The fury would never ebb. And now, even his body betrayed him. And in front of him, rising from the floor with wings outstretched, was the one brother who had not broken. In Sanguinius's hands is a pistol. Infernus, the angel casts it aside and takes wing. Sanguinius had every right to end him, but he chose not wrath, but elevation. In that instant, Angron beheld not a brother, but everything he had been denied. He could not understand it. He could only try to kill it. Angron raises his blade, catches each of the angel's thrusts. They fought again, but the spell had broken. The fury no longer felt righteous. It felt empty. The blows did not bring clarity. They only prolonged a pain that would never heal. And as the angel struck and soared, the Red Angel staggered. Not because his body failed, but because, deep within the shards of his soul, he understood the truth. He had already lost. Not today, not here, but long ago, on a blood-soaked world, beneath iron skies, where no one came to save him. As the eternal war rages on, Angron's legacy endures, a bittersweet parable etched in the annals of the Imperium. To the Imperium, he is a spectre of betrayal and failure, a living reminder of the ruin that unrestrained ambition and forsaken destiny can wreak. Within the dark embrace of chaos, however, Angron is exalted as a war god, his relentless fury and immortal form inspiring those who revel in endless carnage. And to the world eaters, he remains both master and martyr, a tragic figure who, while damning them with his curse, unites them in shared agony and savage brotherhood. In his ruin dwells a profound symbolic weight. Angron is the failed son, the devoured promise of the Emperor's vision, a being who epitomizes the loss of hope in a universe defined by unending war. His story, etched in blood and lament, poses this enduring question. In a realm bereft of heroes, must every soul be doomed to bear the chains of destiny and despair? Thus endures the saga of Angron, the Red Angel, an endless elegy to pain, to rebellion, and to the eternal struggle of a broken spirit. His tragic tale stands as both a warning and a requiem in this ceaseless, sorrowful cosmos.